Coaches rankings, Shaps, I put this in here for you. I knew you were coming on, and when I was looking for some content, I said, "Oh, somebody put Brad Underwood #2 in their Big Ten coaches rankings. Shaps is coming on. Shaps has been through so much coming on my show after Illinois losses, so we got to give Shaps an Illinois W here. Do you agree, Brad Underwood, the second best coach in the Big Ten, an expanded Big Ten with Eric Musselman, Mick Cronin, all these other guys in here? Do you agree, Brad Underwood, #2 coach in the Big Ten?
Brad Underwood is an elite program builder, so we know that. There's probably nobody better. This is not a ranking of the best in-game coaches. That much is clear.
Very clear, because Collins is way too low.
And so, yeah, good point. And there's so I don't have a problem with the list overall. I think it's actually pretty good. We know Brad has his issues, but college basketball is still 90% about recruiting. And Brad has done better than just about any coach in the transfer portal era, still getting highly ranked high school recruits as well. Now he's dipping his toe into the international waters. So I think he deserves that spot after he got over the hump last season. And, just going through the list, like there's really nobody that I'm like, oh, he should definitely be above Underwood at this point, other than Painter. Izzo being at #3, like we know that's mainly because of his legacy. So, and he should be there. That's a huge part of it.
I was gonna say, is he still the #3 coach in the Big Ten though? Like, would you rather have Tom Izzo as your coach, or Mick Cronin, or Eric Musselman, or Dana Altman?
If I was to pick a coach right now, I would probably put Eric Musselman #1.
Wow.
Yeah. If I had my pick of any coach.
I don't know if I'd personally do it, but I can see why you would do that.
I think there has to be a distinction though, like you were kind of saying, Shaps. Like, are we talking about like their legacy, or are we talking about a guy we want to just coach basketball? Like, he's not recruiting or anything. He's just coaching basketball for a team that you built next year. Is that what you're saying you would have Musselman, or are you saying overall for if you were starting a program?
Yeah, I would say overall, like combining all the things, which I think the article kind of said that's what it was. Like they took all of those things into account when making the list. So that's why I think the list is pretty good. I could see Musselman moving up the list pretty quickly, though, especially if he has success at USC.
If taking your shirt off after a big win is a part of it,
yes,
Musselman skyrockets up.
Well, which, preemptive to that is having tons of success in the NCAA tournament.
Secondary. That's secondary.
Right. So that's why he is very, very high on my board. Not the biggest Mick Cronin fan. He seems, we've always said on the Javamen, where Mick Cronin seems like that boss that is, forcing everyone back into the office after COVID. Everyone has to wear like a suit and tie. He kind of gives off that vibe. Yeah, and we saw it up close when we played them in Las Vegas a couple of years ago.
The rest still wears the suits and everything. He's one of the guys that still wears the suits. He can't dress down and put on like an athletic zip up or something.
Yeah, no, you can't dress down. Like, clients might be in the office today. He's got very important luncheons to attend to. He's doing a presentation in the afternoon. So he's got to be put together at all times. And he expects all of his employees around him to do the same as well.
Listen, that's when I knew Chris Holtman was cooked. When he started talking about like his good luck charm was wearing his suits and stuff. I was like, dude. That's not why. You had Thad Modest players. That's why. Anyway, okay. Kit, your thoughts here. I guess we'll start with too low like we did before. Is there anybody? I know you're probably going to say Chris Collins, so you can talk
Probably,
about him being too
of
low,
course.
and then if you have any other names that are too low.
No, like anytime we're talking about coaches, it's all about Chris Collins. He needs to be higher. I don't care if he was at 2, I would say he need to be higher. When it comes to coaching, by the way, and to me, like when lists are made like this, I think that needs to be more emphasized because that's literally the name of their job title is coach. And I think that Chris Collins is a very good basketball coach. I think he gets the most out of his players. He's to me like one of the best in-game coaches that we have in the conference. But I'll put that aside for the purpose of the article. I think that if we're really going to take into account recruiting, the history, and how good they are at actually coaching basketball, I think it's kind of crazy that Tom Izzo isn't number 1. To be honest, he's the only one that has a national championship on this list. If you look at the longevity of his career, first of all, like that's crazy that he's been able to maintain this high level of a job for 30 years now. And also, it's not like he's been a slouch at recruiting. It's a little bit of like, what have you done for me lately with Tom Izzo? Like maybe he gets bumped down a little bit, but throughout the course of his career, he's gotten big name guys to come to Michigan State, whether it be from the state of Michigan or outside. So it's not like he's a bad recruiter. So if you take all that together, he has been the best coach in the conference. And there's really nobody you can match up against him when you're considering all the factors. I think that you have to put him number 1, right? Or am I crazy to say that? But because
I mean, if you're taking like his entire career, yeah, I can see that.
which I think we are, right? Or are we just going to say right now who's the best coach right now with their recruiting? Because if you're saying that, then you have to take away everything that they've done before this. So then you can't argue for Matt Painter like, oh, well, Matt Painter made it to a national championship game. And we was like, well, we're talking about right now. Matt Painter lost a pretty big recruit this summer. What about that? Why is he number 1? If he's the best coach in the conference right now, how does he lose a big recruit this summer? Because he's not a Purdue guy? Like, I don't know. Miss me with that. I think that we have to consider their whole career if we're ranking the coaches. So I think that Tom should be 1.
I think if legacy is equal to current success, then yes. But past 3 to 5 years, I just
Okay.
don't think
So
Tom
we
Izzo
go back
has...
3. I don't know. That's always the hard part when making these lists is like, okay, we're going back 5 years. Well, Tom Izzo was in a Final Four 6 years ago. So
Right?
like we're
That's
not
why I
going to
said
count,
5.
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's past 5, so that doesn't count. Like it was too long ago. Like, I don't know. It's tough for me.
I
But
think you
You're
have
learning
to.
you're
I
learning
don't
my
know.
trick there, Kent.
Yeah,
What'd you say, Chef?
I don't think it's like necessarily like, oh, we ignore the past or or we include all of it. I think you have to put some emphasis on more recent years. Painter being in the national championship last year versus Izzo winning a national championship 25 years ago. I think there is a little bit of a difference if I have to nitpick.
I know, but Michigan, it's not like Michigan State. Like, how long ago were they in a Final Four, though? Wasn't it 2019? That was 5 years ago. That was 5 seasons ago. It's like that quickly. We're just going to be like, okay, he's not the best anymore because it's been 5 long years since he's been to a Final Four. Like, what? Brad Underwood's never been to one. How the hell is he in front of him? How?
Because of the talent that he's bringing in versus Izzo.
I mean,
I
you
don't
do
know.
have to
I don't
look.
know if
You
that.
do have to look at the transfer portal today, though, and like how does a coach utilize it? I do think there's a knock against Brad that a lot of his players have gone into the transfer portal. I had an argument about that on this podcast at one point, so I'm not saying Brad is flawless, but like Tom Izzo has just like refused to use the transfer portal, except for Frankie Fiddler and Tyson Walker. Other than those guys, he's just like, I'm only going to recruit guys, and basically that's going to be it, which is fine if you really believe in your guys, but when you're starting to lose out and, not make the questionable if he made the tournament or not that one year because he was in the playing game, and then now you're having years where people are talking about, is the streak going to end? Is he not going to make the tournament? They were a 9 seed last year, but I think a lot of people thought they probably should have been lower than that if not for their numbers being as high as they were. So, I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you and say like Tom Izzo should be lower. I'm just saying like if we are looking at recency, I can see why that Painter and Underwood are in front of him.
If you go into a season thinking, yeah, we'll be fine with Matty Sissoko as our starting 5, you can't be the top Big Ten coach.
I don't think he's fine. I don't think he's fine with that. He just, I don't know. He's a stubborn dude. I don't know.
Yeah, man. That's why he's not number 1 though, is because he's very stuck in his ways.
Matt Painter is a very stubborn dude. He didn't use the transfer portal either.
He also brought in like 4 recruits though.
Yeah, and he's number 1. Like it's just weird. Like how, I don't know. It's either, to me, like we're either going to talk about their whole careers or the recent. Like we have to set like a time. I don't know. And it's just a list, so it doesn't really matter. But it's hard for me. It's hard for me to look at a list. It does matter. Yeah, that's why we're sitting here talking about it. It's hard for me to look at a list with all these dudes on it and say that Tom's not the best. Even if he had a couple off years where he only went to the first or second round of the tournament, he's done enough to deserve the top spot, I think. Matt Painter did enough last year to say, hey, I'm the best coach in the Big Ten this year. He went to the national championship, did a great job, had a great team, had a great player on his team, had a lot of great players on his team. But that was 1 year. So if we're just talking about 1 year, then yes, this is the list that, Matt Painter went the farthest. Brad Underwood went the second farthest. Brad Underwood did the best in recruiting, I think. And in the transfer portal, Matt Painter kept his players around the best. So yeah, this could be a list for just last year, but overall, or the last, whatever you want to call it, last 10 years, I have a hard time saying it's not Tom.
I think Painter's had Purdue been very, very good the last few years. Nobody has more wins over the past 5 years in the Big Ten than Illinois does. Izzo has been going in the wrong direction. Like you can't argue that.
No, for sure. You're right.
So that's why he's not at the top of the list anymore. If he was like maintaining what he's been doing all along, but he's just not. So that's why he's slowly falling down lists like this. But I don't buy into the Dusty May thing quite yet. I think he's got a lot more to show, at this kind of level. And Mike Woodson still waiting for something to happen at Indiana, waiting for some sort of like real success, not just kind of average, being in the middle of the Big Ten. This is a huge year for them. The rest of overall, I didn't have big problems with the list. Like I thought, they kind of separated it out in the article where they had the top 10 and then they had sort of everyone else. And I didn't think there was anyone really in the bottom, outside of the top 10 that I would rather put in the top 10 and take someone out. You know what I mean? So overall, I thought the list was all right.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue like a few guys down there at the bottom. Like, I'd put Diebler over Willard personally. Probably a little biased there, but Willard is
you can shuffle those guys
right
from 11 to 18. Well, 11 to 17, I guess. You can shuffle those guys around. I think Danny Sprinkle is actually a really good coach, but he's just in a tough, very, very
in here. Danny Sprinkle.
He's got a huge mountain to climb.
What do you guys think about Pickel though being so low? I know JR, you have feelings about him, but especially again, like we're talking about the recruiting thing. He's got the best recruiting class in the country right now. He's 17th.
There's only one ball though.
What's that?
There's only one ball, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, this is his first big recruiting class. I kind of want to see what he does with it before I give him too much credit, because there have been coaches before that have gotten really good recruits and then they just don't know what to do with them.
But I don't know.
And
I
the
don't know if we're
recruits
putting
leave.
him behind Mike Rhodes though. What has he done? Right?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking like individual names, I would probably put Pickel over Rhodes. There's an argument there for over Diebler. There's an argument there for over Johnson, over
Yeah.
Willard. But
But also, like,
Yeah.
who really cares?
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Also,
it's the bottom of the barrel.
yeah,
The
you're
most
right. Chef's like
interesting.
I was thinking the same thing. Like with Gard, I was like, I would take him out of the top 10. But then you look below that, and it's like, well, who do you
Right.
move in there?
Exactly.
It's
And
impossible.
as pointed out, like, Gard has won 2 or 3 Big Ten Coach of the Year awards.
Yeah.
Which I don't put too much emphasis on those. And I said, I think we all know why Gard wins those awards. When you come in with really low expectations.
Because Painter and Underwood and Izzo can't win them. There are legitimately coaches that can't win. I guess Painter did win it one time.
Painter's won a few times.
But still, like, generally, if you're a top tier team in the Big Ten, you don't win that award. It's kind of like
When you're
football. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, it's not Brad Underwood's fault that he comes in every year, being like a top 3 preseason team in the Big Ten, and they pretty much meet or exceed that every year. But because they point to, oh, you have the most talented team, then you can't win Big Ten Coach of the Year award, even though, like we have been discussing, coach should encapsulate everything, including recruiting. But the Big Ten Coach of the Year award is only about exceeding expectations that were made up in the preseason. So I don't put emphasis on those.
Yeah.
Except for, I will say, except for last year when Chris Collins won it, I think that was a legitimate, Coach of the Year. I think the voters that year actually sat down and went play by play for every single play in the conference and said, this guy knows how to run an offense and set up a defense. And he is coaching circles around these boys this year. So that one was legitimate, but all the other ones, I agree with you.
Collins was 2 years ago.
Was it?
Yeah,
Hoiberg
and
year.
Painter. No, Hoiberg and Painter shared it last year. Collins.
That's right.
Collins was 2 years ago. Then it
Who
was
won
Gard.
it this year then?
Juwan Howard
was
guys.
like,
Where's Juwan Howard in our rankings here? He has a Coach of the Year award.
Yeah, see, it's very valuable.
What do you guys? Well, first of all, what do you think Juwan Howard's doing this year?
Chris Holtman won it once. I don't know. Probably training Jace.
Do you ever think about that though? I always think about these fired coaches, and I'm like, I wonder what they're doing. Like,
they're usually
coaching a
like
high school team.
Yeah, they're taking some time to assess their opportunities. They might be like working as a consultant somewhere. That's more like football coaches, though. I don't really know what basketball coaches do.
They're probably much more level-headed than football coaches.
He's probably playing a ton of golf.
Good for him. I'd be doing the same thing if I was paid millions of dollars to leave. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy when you look back at like some of the Coach of the Years. Tom Crean, Richard Pitino, and Chris Holtman all won it in a 3-year span.
I was saying, by the way, I was saying last year, as in like last season, like not this past season, but the one before that.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant by that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he was, if you go by that last season, then yeah.
Yeah, like 2023 is what I meant. Like that's when he got the award. 2024 was, yeah. Sorry. To clarify, I'm not an idiot. I just looked it up. I was like, was it really?
He was in the discussion last year, but I think people kept going back to the fact that they lost to Chicago State and they just really could not give him the award.
Yeah. The fact that you brought that up twice tonight is actually hurting my heart a little bit. So if you do it again, I might have to log off.
I don't think I brought him up the first time. I think that was JR.
It was.
Either way, stop it, guys. It's hurting my feelings.
And I did it just to hurt your feelings, Ken.
Never
Fisherman here
forget.
says Howard is an assistant for the Nets. I believe that sounds right to me. He probably did make his way back into the NBA at some point. So, all right. I mean, I guess last name I'm gonna bring up here. I don't know, like Dana Altman, number 6. He did win the Pac-12 last year. I don't know, like. I guess I just don't know enough about Dana Altman. I know he has a super high winning percentage. I know he's had a long career, or is it super high winning percentage? No, super high winning number. I know he's had a long career, but I don't know. It's kind of similar thing with Tom Izzo to me, but he actually did win the Pac-12 tournament last year, so you can't say he's been falling off. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on Dana Altman?
I think 6 is as high as you can go with a guy that has a girl's name. I'll just say that.
That definitely was in the article. They definitely talked
That's
about
it.
the
I mean,
names.
that's just that has to be something that they consider.
Yeah. Tom was much manlier. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Eric, Tom, Brad, Matt. I mean, look at those, some strong names. Nick. I don't know if that's like a strong name, but the first 4, I think they might have went like just off like what are the most manly names we can find.
It would explain Fran at 12.
Tough one.
Oh man. There's some solid first names. Like a lot of typical first names too. Chris, Matt, Brad, Tom, Kevin, Ben, Jake. I'm sorry. I'm just listing them all off now. Mike.
We've gotten to the portion of the show where we're just reading names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what people come to see.
Yep. If anyone's
true.
left.
Well, we'll just end it here. So